God bless Richard Lewis. Here's Richard.
Sorry I'm late.
No, are you kidding?
Don't yell at me. I'll snap 70.
I can't believe you have me laughing already. Oh,
I have
my
no
God.
choice. I live for it.
Oh, my
Devoted to making people I don't know laugh. Tragic. So let's. Are you taping this?
When you tell me to start.
Yeah, start it whenever you want. You already lost a good minute and a half.
Okay. I'm going to go 3, 2, 1, all right?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. So tell me if I'm crazy, but it seems...
You want to say who you are first? This could be... you're not...
Jim Miller.
You're not part of the administration by any chance, are you?
No, it's the biggest comedy festival in the world. All right, so this is Jim Miller. I am speaking with the Richard Lewis, and we're going to talk about Curb Your Enthusiasm.
It's too embarrassing. God forbid you would have said the Larry David. He would have hung up on you. But I have more manners than Larry.
Larry was actually very polite, and
yeah, there must have been a gun to his head.
No. I think when I interviewed him a couple times for the Saturday Night Live book, we had a very good time together, and I was delighted.
He's brilliant. He's great. When he's in a good mood, he's terrific. When he's distracted, good luck.
All right. Tell me if I'm crazy, but it seems to me...
Right now, just knowing you just for a minute or so, I'm petrified of you.
Oh, my gosh.
What's the question? Are you reading from like a yellow sheet of questions?
Nothing.
Richard Lewis questions?
No.
That kind of crap?
No.
Because I have questions for you.
I just want to go through your tax returns, sexual history, and SAT scores.
Funny.
That'll be it.
Funny, you're on a roll. You're comedically on fire now.
Oh, my God, I'm not worthy. Feel free to argue with me about the following. It seems to me that... It seems that of all the relationships in Curb Your Enthusiasm, your relationship with Larry is closer to reality than virtually all the others. Susie Essman talked about kind of creating her character, and Cheryl talked about creating her character kind of different than they are. But because you and Larry have such an amazing history together, it just seems like you guys are very raw with each other on the show.
It's true. Because has nothing to do with the other cast members. It has to do with that we were born in the same ward 3 days apart. We went to a camp when we were teenagers and we were arch rivals and never saw each other until we became best friends 13 years later. I was a comic a few years before and he was a fan, and I just couldn't believe how brilliant he was, and we became best friends. And I'm a recovered addict for like 23 years, so I might have been drinking one night toward the end. He lived in a dump about a block from the Improv on West 44th Street, and so I'd hang out, and at that time I was probably living in and out of a relationship, living in New Jersey. But I looked at him one night, and he scared me. And we were best friends. Literally, we were inseparable. And anyway, I've told the story, but the bottom line is that I said, we retraced our childhood, because I said, I know you from somewhere, and it's killing me. And we got to our teen years, and I said, I went to this sports camp upstate New York. Ironically, I think if that's even the right word, it was New York Military Academy, where President, that's the right adjective, Trump's father sent him to military school, and in the summer, it became the grounds for one of the greatest sports camps in history, called Camp All-America. And Larry and I went there, and we despised one another, fights, beanballs, you name it. So when I mentioned I went to Camp All-America, and he says, so did I went, wait a minute, you're that Larry David? And we almost, he doesn't remember that I wanted to have a fist fight immediately. It triggered it. But it was 1,000,000,000 to 1 shot that we were the same guys who 13 years prior despised one another, and now we were best friends. It was quite a bond. Not to mention we were both born in the same hospital, Brooklyn Jewish Hospital, which is no longer there, 3 days apart. So it's a mystical kind of deal. And the thing about it, and I had dinner with Larry 2 nights ago, and I'm a real psychological hound, I mean, I've been in and out of therapy for over 40 years. He's not a therapy guy. He tried it, and he ran out screaming once from a group therapy session I got him into. We had to chase him down First Avenue and begged him to come back, but he hid in a phone booth. we wouldn't come out. But I tell everything. That's the only reason I did stand up, is to share my feelings, because I really didn't have much of an audience growing up who either were busy or didn't care that much or had their own issues. And so when I had a group of strangers, it was like a family. And but that's not what I was going to tell you. I might as well just tell you how much I love Willie Mays. That's how unimportant that last riff was. It had nothing to do with what I was going to tell you. You had asked me something that triggered something, and I know what it is. I told Larry at dinner, I said, Larry, on one of the scenes this year, I was telling him, but tongue-in-cheek, really, I love him. We really respect one another, and we do anything for each other. However, his personality is so different than mine in that, he's like isolated, to me at least, his feelings, and I share everything. So there was some riffs on the show where I say, you have no empathy, you're not sympathetic, you couldn't care less, and he just listens and he starts smiling, and then he'll come back with something brilliant. They're like, so what if I am? That kind of thing. So my wife says, you're really telling Larry like as if you're having. I said, well, that's what it is. It's like we're ourselves, and of course, there's some hyperbole, and of course we want to be funny. And I'm a fan of the show. It's a remarkable show. However, we tell each other what we think. If they would have filmed our dinner, he would have had a great 3 or 4 minutes for the show, because if it would have worked for the exposition. Because that's no other people on the cast can claim that, and it's not their fault. It's just that we just have this incredible history from day one, literally. I'm older than him by 3 days, and he tried to. Well, I told people this, don't believe me. He tried to punch me when because I was cesarean and I was a little small at the time. He came out the right route, and I came out of my mother's leg or something. He mocked me and tried to strangle me with the umbilical cord, and that's when it all started.
Well, I think you should hold that against him forever. Can you tell me, when he is talking about your roller coaster love life through your life?
Roller coaster love life? What, me and him?
No. When he talks, like, for instance, I was thinking about the burlesque dancer or other times. Those are the moments when I really feel like we're kind of bleeding history and reality together, because he speaks of it like he knows you so well, and it just fits in so well to the scenes. Do you ever get confused about whether or not he's doing it to Richard Lewis, the character in the show, or if he's doing it to Richard Lewis, his friend?
No, it's both. I wrote a book years ago, The Other Great Depression, and I talked about my recovery from everything, from sex and drinks and drugs and you name it, food, and I was a womanizer. It was consensual. I was a good guy. When I got crazy, I was generally alone, which is not a good sign when you're drinking alone anyway. But he knew how many women I went out with, and I think that's part of the arc of the series with me. I'm always with another girlfriend, but as he would say it, and it's sort of true, kissing or making out is not funny on screen. He's not doing Last Tango in Sheepshead Bay. So So I always tease him. I go, I've been with some pretty beautiful women here, and if I hold their hand, you get nuts. What's the deal? He's not jealous. He just doesn't. He's right. It's not funny. It doesn't look funny, making out and not that I care, but I remember back in the 80s and early 90s, I had about a 4.5-year run with Jamie Lee Curtis, and it took 2 years for me to make love with her on television. Television sex, you know what I mean? And I would be on the road, and mainly cab drivers would say, "Hey, when are you going to make love with her, you little baby?" Just shut up. It's a television show. Let me alone.
So it's 12 seconds in Trading Places, though. People couldn't get out of their mind, so you're stuck with that question.
Well, I was, believe me, that was on my hand. A lot of times when I forgot my lines, I was flashing on the film. But we did make love finally, and I was nervous that I would. There's a lot of cameramen, and it's what you hear actors say. Oh, it's all methodical and camera angles, and of course my wife says, yeah, like they're not having fun. I go, yeah, well, it's a little bit of fun, but I can't lie. But with Jamie, I was afraid that I would get too excited and my career would be over, so I wore like a Ben-Hur codpiece, just in case anything happened. It was before TMZ,
Oh, well, that's good to hear.
Yeah, I'll say.
Parachute sheets are the softest and most comfortable sheets you'll ever own. And why is that? Well, simply put, it's because they're made from the very best fabrics. Parachute sheets have a clean, minimalistic style that come in neutral colors, so they work perfect in any bedroom. And the best part of Parachute is that their sheets get softer with time. Plus, if you're a person who wants to make an impact on the world, and frankly, who doesn't, then Parachute is the company for you. They've partnered with the United Nations Foundation to donate malaria prevention bed nets, and they've already donated 16,000 so far. Here's another great part of the story. Parachute offers a 60-night trial, so if you don't love your sheets, you just send them back, no questions asked. Now, if you're wondering how that makes a positive impact on the world, well, all returns are donated to Habitat for Humanity, and that's a great cause. So don't wait. Visit parachutehome.com/origins for free shipping and returns. Again, that's parachutehome.com/origins for free shipping and returns. It doesn't get any easier. It's time to get better sleep with Parachute. When you were doing the documentary that preceded the series, was there any part of you that thought, hey, this could be a series, and I hope this will be a series?
No, I had no clue what Larry wanted to do. I didn't even know he was doing it. I don't ask him much about his career. We're just best friends. It's like we have like a really pure friendship. We like to talk about other things, politics and sports, and we talk about other friends, mutual friends. That's one thing. But I try to stay clear of the show, certainly of Curb, because it's you can get lost in a bubble out here, and it's all about it's a lot of crapola, the business end of it. It's all about the art for Larry, and quite frankly, we're very similar. We have some similar backgrounds with family. To this day, I write notes down since I'm 20 years old, premises that I could use on stage. He did the same thing as a comic, and then ultimately he would use these notes. And I think Woody does the same thing from what I read and saw. I don't know Woody. I know him, but we're not friends at all. But he writes things down on cards, and he tries to find when they work in a film. So what I'm told. In fact, I saw Woody even talk about it in a documentary. And Larry does the same thing with, if something funny happens at dinner, he'll write it down. He was writing something down the other day. I'll never ask him what it was. And if it fits into an arc of one of his shows, if there is another 10 shows, and this is the most positive I've ever seen him after, his full season. It's been a 5-year hiatus, but he's so wiped out. It's so difficult what he does. It's much, in some respect, it's harder to do what he does than just to write a great half-hour script, because he's got to count on the actors to move the story along and to be funny without his writing, So, from the first frame of the first episode to the last one in the 10th episode, it all has to fit like a puzzle. So it's really complicated, and it's really tiresome, on his comedic brain. So, he never feels like he'll do it again but at dinner he was really ecstatic over the season, and I know enough about the season that I think this is the best season of all. And he wouldn't do another season if he didn't think he could top the one prior, and he did. I'm not like boasting because I'm in the show. I'm in half the show, half the series, and I'm a supporting player, and I'm proud to be in it. But I'm a fan of his, and I'm a fan of the show, and I'm a fan of how brave he is. He's a really heroic writer. I've mentioned before that he truly is the Norman Lear of the last 30, 40 years of this generation of television writers, and he deserves that. He's won every award, every Writers Guild award, every possible award. He deserves it. There's no one like him, but he seems really pleased, and for him to be pleased, I wouldn't say, hey, you look happy. If I say that, I could blow the whole 10th year,
Right.
I don't want to blow it for the cast and crew, But I did sneak in something. I go, God, it would be fun if you got 100 episodes. It'd be like, I turned it into like a baseball analogy, Come on, get your 100th home run, whatever, some crap like that. And he wasn't funny, so he didn't laugh. But I mean, I'd love to do it. Everyone would want it. People love the show. Yesterday I did an MSNBC. I did an Ari Melber show, and there's a lot. I'm friends with a lot of journalists in Washington, and they just are crazy over the show. It's the kind of show where, and someone had asked me on I think it was Brooke Baldwin, they were talking about Curb as well, and also about this history of comedy thing they were doing, and about drugs and alcohol and all that stuff. So I was sort of in that one a lot. But Larry seemed really positive about this season, more than any season I've ever, since 2000. And that's a good sign for fans. I know what I wanted to say was this. She was talking about me, and I couldn't handle some of the praise. So I said, "Listen, not everybody likes me. By far, not everybody likes me. There's if you want to go with that 38% of the base, which I don't agree that 38% of the people admire the President Trump. They were frustrated about how things were going, and with Congress, and with health, and all this stuff, and with food and jobs and all this." It's not that they admired this guy's style. I mean, it's pretty grotesque and pretty uninformed. So I was discussing this, and then she started talking about me, and I said, no, I don't want half of Donald Trump's base. I don't want people that are hateful or spiteful or don't care how he talks or are crude. And they can live their own lives, but they're not going to like my style. And that's good. I'm like an independent film on stage. People either love the film or they go, what is it? What is this about? What a drag. And that's good. But with Larry, it's sort of the same. If people love Curb, they love it more than any show they've ever seen. And if they don't like it, they watch it twice and they go, I don't get it. And Larry, that's why Larry is, he's a genius to me. But I mean, that's why he's so iconic.
But do you think you guys differ in terms of you want more acceptance from the audience than he does?
I think he needs acceptance from the audience, but I need it on a deeper psychological level. I didn't get much growing up it wasn't intentional necessarily, but I just was psychologically damaged, needing to feel that I was that I knew what I was talking about, and that I wasn't always wrong, basically. And the audience, if they laugh at problems of mine, it means two things. One, that they understand, they're empathetic, and also that they have the same problems. And I feel less alone. You're sitting in a room with a lot of drunks, and you think you're alone until you hear 30 other men and women talk about the same problem. You go, wait a minute, that's me. And so it's the same thing with an audience. If they laugh at your distress, it's not that, hopefully they're not mostly laughing at you, they're laughing with you. And I need that. I still need it.
But you're willing to make yourself vulnerable. I don't think Larry does in fact, sometimes he'll, as you know better than I, he would, when he was doing stand-up, he would just walk out.
Because but for him, though, that was more like, like the reason Steve Martin retired in '79. I mean, he was, you couldn't get much bigger than him at that point as a stand-up, but, he had some quote where he was like, it was less about the art for him at that point. It was more like he was like, like a clown going to a children's party and entertaining, and he didn't like that. He's a real smart, intellectual, serious, brilliant comedian. And he didn't appreciate the role he was thrust into with his stardom. And Larry, on the other hand, as a young comic, needed undivided attention, which is absurd. You know, I mean, people would say, whisper even to the waitress, "I'll have another 7 and 7." All right, I'm out of here. You know, I mean, I said, Larry, it's a nightclub. They come in to get it's a 2-drink minimum. You know, what do you want to turn this into the Mormon Chuckle Hut while you're on? You know.
Did your relationship with Larry change, or did he change with the success of Seinfeld?
No, the only thing that disturbed our relationship and affected it was my alcoholism. He had told me about it. He told me I had a problem. I didn't do anything about it for years and years. And when I didn't, he was uncomfortable around me. That's my words. But when I got sober in '94, our friendship picked up remarkably, and now we're back to where we were before I was for sure a drunk. So it was the alcoholism, not just with Larry, with my life in general. It was like falling apart. So he was, I missed out on a lot of great years, particularly the Seinfeld years, with him because I was using and drinking. I've been sober almost 23 years now, but back then I wasn't. So he had a very uncomfortable time. He tried to, he begged me to stop. But that didn't work. He wasn't the only one. I needed a plan, a game plan, an intervention, and all that jazz. I got married at 57. I met my wife about 20 years ago. I was only about 3 or 4 years sober, but she's never seen me. It's just, I don't want to get into the alcoholism stuff, but except that she's never seen me have a drink or anything, and it's sort of, it's like, it's like a twilight zone for me, I mean, I have no problem when I go to dinner. I start ordering bottles of wine for people because I don't want to be like Dragnet. Hey, what are you doing? Like a bad cop. I don't care what people do. I mean, I don't want. If they're too, I don't let people drive if I'm around them. If they're high, I'll get them a car or I'll drive them home or whatever. I mean, drinking and driving is it's unthinkable to me. It wasn't when I was a drunk. I didn't think about it. But I don't, how people live their lives. I mean, most people I know are other than alcoholic friends or in recovery, drink. They smoke dope. I mean, I don't hang out. I would never hang out with people who are doing like what I did. Crystal meth or coke and I just can't be. I'm not comfortable at a party where people are doing those kind of drugs. So I just stay away from that. That's one path. It's not even that it's unsafe for me. I have no intention, at least today, of drinking or using. But on the other hand, I'm uncomfortable in their company. I mean, they're all on a different wavelength. I went to a Super Bowl party once years ago and with some really good friends, and they were just smoking dope and some weed and had a couple of bottles of wine already done. And I love, when I watch, I love sports. I don't play much anymore. I'm sort of broken down, my body. But, I'll watch, I don't play tennis, but I love watching the Opens and the golf. I never played golf. Once with Larry, and I couldn't play, and the people behind us were screaming at me, and Larry was screaming at me because I couldn't hit the ball more than 3 yards. And then I started throwing. It was a public course. This is like in the late 70s. And I said, Larry, let me throw the ball down the fairway. He was so humiliated. The whole thing was a nightmare, and that was the last time I was ever on a golf course. But I love watching great athletes, even badminton. I'm a great stickball player. I beat Pete Rose in stickball, and Larry will be the first to admit that I was in my prime, one of the greatest stickball hitters in history. And let all the New Yorkers who hear this laugh. Trust me. You couldn't get it by me.
ESPN should do a special 30 for 30 documentary on your stickball years.
I wish there was one. And I was in a professional stickball league here for 4 years, which still exists. I can't give the location. It sounds, I don't mean to be grandiose, but we don't want, people running out for asking for autographs. But the truth is I fell off before I moved, I fell off my roof and I badly fractured my hand in the last year, and I had to cancel my entire year, except I was able to do curb, thankfully, last year, but shoot it. But I had to quit stickball. I mean, I could still swing a bat, but it's not worth it when you realize you have pins and needles and plates in your wrist, and go to left field and all of a sudden your hand falls off. It's just not worth it.
Hey, can I ask you a question? When they decided
why
do...
Why are you even calling me? What kind of question is that? That might be the silliest thing you've ever said. You asked me a question. I expected you basically just to call me and give me dietary tips.
Right.
You go smart for about 5, and then you either feel ashamed that you're too smart, or you don't feel you deserve to be smart, and then you do something dumb.
Well, I have to get a lot off my chest. No, I'm just kidding.
Have you talked to a counselor about this problem?
When they decided to go from the documentary to a series, was there any part of you that...
Oh, you did ask me that before.
Didn't want to join in?
No.
Or...
Yes. Well, there was only one reason. I've done some serious acting. I guess I'm be it like a first scene in Leaving Las Vegas, and it was good and it was fun because I have some chops. I'm not going to be, Daniel Day-Lewis was the right Lewis for Abe Lincoln. I wasn't going to be Abe Lincoln. I wasn't going to go 80 and I don't know how many years. It wouldn't have been good.
Well, you had the Abraham part down.
I had the Abe part. Yeah, I would have nailed Abe. But no, but I'm a fairly decent actor. I've done some guest spots, dramatic guests, and I enjoy it if it's within my range. I'm not a Shakespearean actor by any. I'm not, or a great character actor. But within my range, I'm good. I studied acting, and I did a movie back in the '90s called Drunks with some of the greatest actors in American history, and I got the lead, and I played a junkie, and I'm proud of that. But I still was stereotyped, and so when Larry came over to my house after the documentary, when it was successful, and he said, "I'm going to do a series. I'm going to do 1 year. It's always just 1 year. Do you want to play yourself?" And for a second, I said, "Oh God! Well, there goes any chance of getting a lot of auditions or offers as an actor. I'm playing Richard Lewis." And then I'm standing there in my house with Larry, and I'm going, "This is Larry David. I'm going to say no to Larry David." I mean, careers, before you know it, you're done. And I go, "I'm in." But I had one caveat. I said, if that's even the right word in this sentence. I said, "Listen, I don't want to do one episode if you're doing 10. I don't want to be judged for 2 minutes on screen. I just don't. I won't. And I pass, except if you give me at least 3 episodes where I can establish, our relationship, I'm in." And he did. He gave me, I think, 3 or 4 or 5. And we got great reviews. The whole show it was insane. But then when they singled out our relationship, it was really fabulous. So he was right in thinking it was he was right in thinking that it might work. And I planned my entire career around shooting Curb, whether it's movies, acting, other acting gigs, and not that there's that many, but my touring. It's like I have to show up on that Curb set. It's just too important. I mean, at my age, at 70, there are people who have grandchildren who know my show. So the late boomers know me from not way before Curb. I mean, I did about 50 or 60 Lettermans back in the 80s. So, I mean, I've been around since 71. So, I mean, people know me from other things. So, but then they have children, and they're in their 30s or now, and they know me. And their kids in high school watch Curb on demand. So, I feel like, like the Eagles have to sing, they had to at one point, sing Desperado at the end of the show, I feel like I got to do an old joke from 71 at the end of the show.
Are you ready to make your next move? Well, Squarespace wants to be with you when you do. Squarespace gives people a powerful and beautiful online platform from which to make their next move known to the world. With Squarespace, people can lock down their ideas with a unique domain, create a website to launch their idea, a portfolio to get their project out there, and an online store to officially open for business. There's so much that Squarespace can do for you. So what are you waiting for? Make your next move with Squarespace. Create a beautiful website or online store with award-winning templates. There's nothing to install, patch, or upgrade, ever. And Squarespace offers award-winning 24/7 customer support with fully transparent and simple to execute setup. Squarespace is used by a wide range of creatives, people, and businesses. Use offer code ORIGINS for 10% off your first purchase of a website and domain. That's offer code ORIGINS. And make your next move with Squarespace. So it sounds like, given your long career, Curb is probably one of the more meaningful, bigger blips on your radar screen?
It's the biggest one because I play myself. I am myself. I'm able to say my own words, which is beyond a luxury. And, there are high points in careers. Carnegie Hall, I had a 4 or 5 year run with Jamie Lee Curtis, and all of a sudden 50 million people during the day with, not just watching the show, but, PR, and then they show clips during other shows. I mean, half the country recognized me in that, I got that show, and then I was playing a club in New York 3 times a year, Caroline's actually. And I would always bring notes on stage, and because I really couldn't stand. That's why I stopped doing specials after 4 or 5, because I didn't want to go on the road and do the same material. I couldn't take it. Plus, I like to ad-lib and free associate. So I used to bring notes on stage. I had about 3 or 4 hours of stuff I'd never said, and I put it on a piano, and I really looked at these sheets, these papers, for weeks on edge, so it wasn't like I was cheating. I would put my head down and see a subject and then pop up and do 20 minutes of brand new material. And it worked. But some guy told me, I've had like 3,000 managers, and I don't have any more. I don't want any more managers. But one guy said, I think I was only with him for about 20 minutes, but he said to me, why don't you try it the traditional way? I said, what do you mean? He says, well, it looks like a work in progress. I said, well, it hasn't hurt me. I just came back from Vegas. I did Carnegie Hall 10 years ago. They didn't care. He says, yeah, but it's a work in progress. I went, yeah, because I feel that they deserve to know that I don't know, that I have the balls to do this, and I don't know if it's funny. He says, well, yeah, but they deserve to know that you know. I go, and I was thinking about it, and it started to bug me. So I tried it a few times, and all that meant was that I have 3,000 pages on my computer from about 10 years ago, which has about 105, almost 1 million premises. I'll never get them, I'll never remember them. So I print out about 20 pages before I go on tour, and it's all new material. Some of it's not new, but it's stuff I've never said, because I don't write notes down on the piano anymore on sheets of paper. And it's frustrating, but I'm a much better performer because I'm riddled with fear when I hear my name, because I have absolutely no idea what I'm going to say, what I'm going to start with, and I ad-lib half the show, and I've never been better. So, I'm not going to at 70 go back and try to do, here's my new 45 minutes or new material night. I see that. I mean, look, things change. I'm not one of these older guys, where I love comics, and I know I love the struggle. And I always tell them that it's all about the craft and the journey, and before you know it, you're going to, if you get some luck. I mean, Sidney Lumet said in a documentary that of the billions of actors that he's worked with, the one word that came up mostly was that about their career was luck. And of course, you got to work on your craft, but without any luck, you're sunk. And I had luck auditioning with Jamie Lee Curtis. I had luck with Letterman telling me I can do the show as much as I wanted. I had luck that Carson dug me. And the greatest luck of all, at 50, when I turned 50, Larry comes over my house and says, I want you to play we can hardly call each other best friends on the show because he screams at me at every. In fact, J.B. Smoove and I, we've never done a scene together. And I think J.B. Smoove clearly is one of the funniest people on the planet and one of the funniest actors on a situation comedy, for sure, in history. And he's also riddled with contentment, and I say riddled with, that's my word, and he's humble, and he has great humility, and he's a great family guy, but he destroys me. When I saw him the first time, and I saw the copy of the tape in the 6th year, I called him up and I went, I don't know who you are, I don't know your history, But I don't know what planet you came from. It reminded me when I first heard Jimi Hendrix's first album. I went, I don't know where this guy came from, but I've never heard anything like it. Well, I never saw anything like this guy up until that time. And Larry feels the same way. I mean, everyone does, but Larry just, and I think this guy is like, he can't make a false move. He's a brilliant writer, and he's a brilliant improvisational actor. And I don't know what got me off on JB, but I forget what you asked me. You probably threw it in with some kind of question that confused me.
Well, do I have time for one last question?
Yeah, it's okay. I'm okay. You can ask two even.
Thank you. You were talking about the material that you keep in a book, and you have so much that you just, take some out and you use it on the road.
Yeah, I take about 4 hours of new material out, and that's all I take. I don't take 1,000 hours. It would be pathetic. It would be pointless.
But has there ever been any of that, let's say, archival material that you've been able to use on Curb, or is the nature of Curb just so extemporaneous?
Larry's always said, and he thought that I I only knew about the scene most of the time, like a day before, sometimes never. But Larry is right. When I thought about the scene at all, I wouldn't be as good. And he said this was the best year I've ever had in the last couple of years. And, well, not before, it was 5 years before this one, but it's because I keep my head totally open and I listen better, and I'm a better improvisational actor. And Larry's been really happy, and it makes me feel really good because I really want to come through for the guy. I love the guy, and the show cemented not my place in comedy, but it's since I'm playing myself, and what I do is I'm basically Richard Lewis in real life, like Larry is. But Larry continues to say that he wishes he was that Larry David. Unfortunately, I am this Richard Lewis. I'm far more messed up than he is psychologically. So I would never use a joke that I had written down. In fact, he would smell it a mile away, and I have no reason to do it. The glorious part of Curb is that you don't know what you're going to say, and it just comes out. So,
I thought the work that you did with When Richard Lewis Needs a Kidney, that whole storyline was just unbelievable.
And people, it's not, and that one in particular, when I needed a colonoscopy a couple of years ago, and I'm waiting for the car. Everything's valeted in L.A. People know this. I mean, little stores, little delis, valet, $8.95. The whole thing's a joke. So I had a valet. Well, this was a medical building, so I understood that. So I valet, and so the guy says to me, "Are you going to have a colon fight with Larry?" I go, "You know what? Can you just do me a favor? I could be dying. Let me get my colonoscopy." That was a tell. So then I get the car, and some other guy is walking to his car, and he goes, "Richard, is your kidney okay?" I go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you got Larry's kidney." I go, No. I said, "Please, please." And it gets to the point where, because we're playing our own names and our own people, our own persons, people do believe it. And I sort of take pride in that because I guess it's very real. I'm a gigantic film buff, and one of my heroes, who I've never met, unfortunately, although I correspond with one of his children, Zoe Cassavetes, is John Cassavetes. I know everything, every film I've seen 100 times, practically. And and it's so real. I remember hearing, I think Spielberg said it was like he felt he was a peeping Tom watching a Cassavetes movie. It was just watching people's lives unravel, mainly. And we're not unraveling necessarily. I might be unraveling in some scenes, and Larry might be upset or angry, but funny. But I felt it was like doing a Cassavetes movie, but as a comedy, because it's so real. And it gets really intense sometimes. Our fights are almost no different, except maybe in how loud they are, and in real life and on the show. So it's hard for me to put in words. Maybe one day I'll be able to. I'm sorry I can't do it for you, but it's one of the most spectacular experiences of my career and of my life. And there's not a day that goes by that I'm not grateful that not only do I know and love Larry and his kids, his two amazing daughters, but the fact that he respects my work, I'm a lucky cat. That's where it's at.
Well, Richard, thank you so much. By the
way, I
didn't
mean to rhyme that like Dr. Seuss. By the way, don't hold that against me.
No.
I'm a lucky cat. That's where it's at. I mean, I don't even think I'll even get an erection again after saying that.
That's the title of your new memoir.
It's always good to close on a penis joke, isn't it?
No, that's your memoir title.
I'm a lucky cat. That's where it's at. Or the penis thing.
No, the lucky cat, that's where it's at.
Yeah, it's a good title, isn't it?
I mean, it really. But now I want to go home tonight and rewatch A Woman Under the Influence because you got me thinking about Cassavetes so much, and it was a movie that I.
Well, yeah,
so
Woman
much.
Under the Influence. I don't know who won the best Oscar for actress. She was nominated, and John was nominated for screenplay. But you can't be better than her. I worship the Cassavetes family and those two. That's the couple for me. You know, I mean, I know a lot about foreign films, and I'm a film buff. I watched everything I could get my eyes on in college and up, and same with Buster Keaton and in comedy and Charlie. But I knew Keaton's widow. We were good friends, and that's one trip I'll leave you with. That's very surreal to me. My wife has her own business. It's not in show business, but she used to be a very well-known music publisher for a long time, and so she was in the business. So if I'm hanging out with the Stones or politicians or New York or Washington Post writers, or having dinner with them, or whatever, or I'm not at the White House now. Believe me, I haven't been since Clinton was there. But just hanging out, I just feel like a kid in a candy store. And I'm very close with Ronnie Wood. He's a really good friend of mine for over 30 years. And Keith loves comedy, and Charlie, they watch Curb, and I'm not sure if Mick does. I haven't spoken to Mick as much as the other three guys, but
I loved Keith's memoir.
His memoir is one of the best reads ever. But my point is that I still don't understand. I'm sitting and I'm hanging out backstage with the Stones for 4 hours for an hour and a half before the show, and I leave and I go, how did this happen? I was 16 and I Get No Satisfaction was playing, and now they're talking about Larry and me in an argument, and my wife, who's been in the business, but she says it's because, well, first of all, I'm 70. They we're pretty in the same age group. It's not just the older guys. And they just happen to dig your humor. That's, and I'm lucky. But I still feel like the kid who struggled, was broke, never thought he could make it, didn't have a clue, didn't know anyone in the business. My father was dead. He never saw me perform. He was a very famous caterer back in New York and New Jersey, and I was frightened to death. And I said, Dad, come back and just fly down like Godzilla or Rodin, pick me up by the shirt collar and put me right on the Improv with Brenner and Klein and Pryor and Rodney. But that doesn't happen. You got to do it yourself. And I did, and I'm proud of that. It took me a long time to feel proud of. Forget about the people I know. I mean, you just meet people when you're in show business, but most of my best friends are out of the business. But the truth is, I'm proud of the journey, and a lot of the millennials. And I hate to throw this around because it's not about everybody, but they don't seem to have as much patience, and maybe that's because there's so many people trying for the same job. When I started back as a comic in the early '70s, it was just really a handful of us who were really scoring on a routine basis with the audiences. And we were well known, amongst the very few comedians. Now there are really thousands of comedians and hundreds of brilliant ones, but they're all vying for something, for the same spot. And it's really difficult. And sometimes they seem impatient. And I say, work on your craft, and you got to get a little lucky. And that's really where it's at. Oh,
by the way, just in case you wanted to know, Gina Rollins lost the Academy Award to Ellen Burstyn for Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore in 1975.
She lost it. She was in, what movie was that?
Gina was nominated, obviously, for a woman.
I know, but what did Burstyn win?
Alice Doesn't Live Here Anymore.
Cassavetes was not understood by a lot of critics, and a lot of critics tried to bury his movies before they went wide. And one of the greatest performances I've ever seen, and it's about alcoholism too, and it's a story within a story, a play within a play, is Opening Night. And it's gettable. It's one of the greatest films I have ever seen, one of the greatest performances by an actress I have ever seen in my life. And, I once wrote a letter to her telling her how I felt. I wrote a letter. I was in this mode, which is years ago. I wrote a letter to Jerry Lewis has always been nice to me, and in public, in print. So I wrote him a note, and he called me, and it was nice. And I've seen him a few times. And I wrote one to Dylan, and I've met Bob. We're not friends, and I'm closer to Jacob. And but I wrote a letter to him, and I wrote one to Jenna Rollins. And I never got a response from Bob. I didn't expect one from Bob. To say he's a little enigmatic is putting it mildly. But I was, once I mailed the letter to Jenna, I told my wife, we weren't even married. I said, "Why did I do this?" It's like, why press send? What did I do? It was, oh God, I felt like I was the head of a fan club, But I am, so I don't even know if she ever even got the letter. But anyway, Jenna Rollins, ladies and gentlemen, no open mic night for her. That's for sure.
No, I can't thank you enough. I so appreciate this.
Well, it's my pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Okay, bye. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed this Origins original. Please be sure to subscribe to Origins for new chapters every month, along with other Origins originals and Origins conversations. Thanks so much. For Origins, I'm Jim Miller.